Hey there, Mr. Redder here. Welcome back to another episode of Reddit Podcast Stories, where today, am I the jerk for not sharing my lottery winnings with my girlfriend? After winning the lottery, I was excited about the possibilities it could bring to my life. However, when I shared the news with my girlfriend, she immediately started pressuring me to give her a substantial amount of the winnings. She argued that we had been together for a significant amount of time and that she had supported me throughout our relationship. I explained to her that the money was a personal windfall and that I had plans for it, such as investing in my future and taking care of my family. I also mentioned that we had never discussed sharing finances or making joint decisions about money before. Despite my explanations, my girlfriend became increasingly angry and accused me of being selfish and greedy. She claimed that I was prioritizing money over our relationship and that I should be willing to share my newfound wealth with her. Feeling overwhelmed and hurt by her demands, I decided to end the relationship. I believed that her insistence on me giving her the money was unfair and showed a lack of understanding and respect for my boundaries. Now I'm questioning whether I made the right decision and if I'm the jerk in this situation. Info: I won $200,000 from the lottery. She demanded at least $150,000. When you say supported, how did she support you? We've never had to financially support each other or anything, so you could say moral support. And I live in Canada if that helps. Did you buy the ticket together in some way? If so, I would personally share it with her, depending on how your economy is set up. Not saying 50-50, it totally depends on how your economy is run. You kind of give little information, and the dating for 2 years feels vague. Not saying that you're hiding something, it's just not a lot of information. You say nothing about how you came into possession of the ticket. My question is, did she indeed support you the majority of your relationship? If so, yeah, you kind of owe her a thank you amount. But it sounds like you're okay with not being responsible for yourself to begin with, since she was taking care of you at all to begin with. Do you live with her? She may be entitled as common law. I can't tell you what to do, but if my boyfriend literally won $200,000 and never had to work again a day in his life and expected to not share some of that with me, I would be gone. That would be a huge red flag showing me how greedy he is and unwilling to share. What does one person even need that much money at one time for? Ah, Reddit, the only place you'll find people who think you can retire and never have to work again after winning $200K in the lottery, which would be far less than that after taxes. Well, I mean, maybe you could retire if you want to live under a bridge or something. Some of these people just don't have a very good understanding of finances. Well, why should they? Mommy's the one who's supposed to pay for their weddings, right? Not again, Reddit boy. Am I the jerk for telling my aunt to keep her gifts since my kids couldn't care less about them? I have 2 toddler sons. They're just like any other toddlers and are pretty self-absorbed. Currently, one adores cars and the other loves the color red. Toddler 1 won't play with anything but cars, and Toddler 2 will only play with red toys. My mom hosted a party the other night and one of my aunts came. She bought a bunch of gifts for all the kids. The older kids were respectful and accepted their gifts, but my sons simply glanced at the toys, noticed they weren't cars or red, and moved on to something else. I thanked her for the toys and made a joke about how unpredictable toddlers are after realizing she looked upset, but she rolled her eyes and said, "That was rude." I told her they're toddlers, and she said, "So? My kids knew how to say thank you by the time they were 3. I told her they can say please and thank you, but they're still learning. She made a noise and said, "Learning to be rude?" I told her she was being a little insensitive and that they're literally babies. They don't even understand the concepts of being rude and ungrateful. She got annoyed and said, "Fine then, don't expect any more presents after today," and that she hated entitled parents like me who are blinded by their kids and think that they can do no wrong. I said, "Whatever," and told her that she could keep the gifts she bought for today since my kids couldn't care less about them. She got all red in the face and said now she knows why the boys are so rude, but I just grabbed the kids and my husband and left. I was extremely angry at the moment, but now I'm just in disbelief. Who gets offended by a toddler? My mom says my aunt is very upset with me and is threatening to uninvite us from her Christmas dinner. Aunt is hosting this year, unless I apologize and promise to raise my kids better. My mom thinks we're being ridiculous and I should just say sorry, but I said no. Am I the jerk? I just can't wrap my head around why she's so angry. Edit. First, to be more specific, the boys just turned 2. Second, I feel I made this clear, but I apologized and thanked my aunt before anything else. The boys had already run off to their dad and were preoccupied with him by the time I got to my aunt, so dragging them over and trying to maybe get a thank you out of them Felt like a waste of time for all of us. I'm not saying she isn't allowed to feel hurt, but she didn't have to say all those things about my kids. I've explained this in the comments. People still think I'm in the wrong, but a few people are saying to include it anyways. The boys don't really speak. Yes, they're 2, and I'm sure your 2-year-old niece or nephew can speak several languages, but my sons barely say mommy and daddy sometimes. It's not something concerning, but I didn't think it was worth the time to drag my kids back to me and my aunt and get them to say thank you, which they won't even acknowledge me until about 10 minutes in, and they'll just stare. Sometimes I can get a noise or a sound out of them, maybe an ooh, but I figured my aunt had better things to do than wait that long. I sincerely believe that there was no reason for her to get so angry, but I understand that I was wrong and will apologize. We won't be attending her Christmas party though. She's not offended by your toddlers. She's offended by your behavior in response to your toddlers. Did you not get that? Her entire point was that when your kids are rude, it's your job as their parent to guide the right response, and you didn't do that here. Everyone sucks here because you both overreacted. You're the jerk. I don't think it's so much that she was offended by them, but by you straight up allowing them to be rude in her home and doing absolutely nothing about it, and instead, you made up excuses. As a parent, you should be trying to correct that behavior now so it doesn't persist as they grow up. How hard would it have been to say thank you to your grandma for the presents, or something along those lines? What do we say? Would have worked also. I could go on. Say you're sorry. Everyone sucks here. They are indeed learning to be rude. It's okay if they forget, but it's your job to remind them. On the other hand, she's also severely overreacting, but she's initially not wrong. Edit. To everyone answering that your 2-year-olds can't say thank you, it doesn't have to be the exact words, but any kind of reaction like a hug or something, not just letting them run away to their dad like nothing happened. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her aunt? Please let us know. You know it would have been hilarious if the 2-year-old took the toy from the aunt, looked her right in the eye and said, "Thanks, Aunt Molly. I really appreciate the gifts." Whoa, Karen, I didn't know you could talk like that. There's a lot of things I can do that you don't know about, Reddit boy. Am I the jerk for telling my kids that if they don't come to my wedding, I will not be attending theirs? I'll start at the beginning. My ex-husband was a good father, but a terrible husband. I divorced him when my oldest was 14 and my youngest was 10. Well, he ended up spiraling, and the kids were exposed to that. I was blamed for ruining their dad. He got better after a few years, but ended up doing it again when he learned I was dating. So the kids kept trying to get me to not date since it would affect their dad. It was an awful time since to the kids, I was still responsible for what he did and how he reacted to things. In the end, I just kept my dating on the low end, which wasn't hard since it wasn't introducing the kids to the guys I was dating. All I had to change was not posting on social media. Also, yes, I sent the kids to therapy. They all stopped when they turned 18, or my middle kid refused to talk, so I pulled him. My oldest is now 25, and my youngest is 21, and I got proposed to. I set them down and told them. They were not happy and were still upset that I was doing this to their dad. Lots of talks later, and I thought it was good. The wedding is in 2 weeks. I got a text from all the kids saying they will not be at my wedding, that they need to support dad during this time. I had enough and texted them that if they don't come to my wedding, it will damage our relationship, and I will not be attending their own weddings when they get married. They were upset, and it started an argument, and all of them think I'm a huge jerk. I truly hate that I can't do anything that makes me happy since it will affect my ex. Update. I realized that I'm okay letting them go. I can't do it anymore. I sent a text, it's up to them if they want to go or not. If they do, I have hope to fix this relationship. If not, I'm just done. I can't keep playing this game. It's for everything. Anytime I have something good, his feelings have to come first. I can't do that anymore. It hurts too much. I could tell them everything he has done, but I don't feel like blowing up their image of him. Update 2. Someone private messaging me convinced me to lay it all out for them, so I did. Well, I got my response. They called me a liar, even with showing old screenshots that were in our divorce case. I think it's over. Thanks for everyone that tried to help. I know this was a no-win situation. Not the jerk. They're adults now, and they should realize that you are under no obligation to stay single to appease your ex. They are not the only people who have had parents divorce, and yet it seems like they can't get over it. And if after all this time your ex is still emotionally impacted by your personal life, then he needs to get on with his life and get help, because it's not healthy. Also, assuming that they want you to go to their weddings in the future, are they expecting you to go solo and not bring your husband? not the jerk. You're allowed to move on. You don't need to put your personal life on hold just because it doesn't sit well with your ex. Your kids need to be supportive of both their parents. They're no longer bratty teenagers, they're adults now. On the other hand, some info is missing. How is your relationship with your kids? Did they live with you after the divorce? When it comes to the ultimatum, I still don't think you're a jerk, but the approach might not work. It may have been more effective to communicate how hurt you felt and why, including understanding in detail why they are so against you dating anyone and not being supportive of you. But now if they come, you would not feel good about it, as you may feel that you forced them to. I would say though that it seems your kids have way bigger issues with you getting married to someone else than just your ex, since it's a big step to decide not to come to your wedding. So try digging deeper and understanding what it is. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her kids? Please let us know. Those kids sound like they have more issues than People magazine. And how long has our ex been crying about this now? Dude, that guy needs to get some hobbies or something. Never allow yourself to remain a prisoner to the past. Our thoughts and actions in the present is what shapes our future. Wow, Karen, you can say some pretty insightful things sometimes. What, you thought I was just a pretty face? I just found out that 4 of my 5 kids are not mine. My wife won't say anything about it. My world has been turned upside down over the last couple of weeks. I met my wife when we were in high school and we married in college. We have 5 beautiful kids together. Really, I consider them a total blessing regardless of what I'm about to bring up. And up until a couple of weeks ago, I thought that we had the perfect marriage. We were the typical high school sweethearts. We go out together. We never fight. I feel like I've done everything a loving husband should do. I'm saying this not to make myself out as the perfect husband. For example, my work has always meant I work long hours and maybe haven't always been there when she needed me. But I want to stress that I've never felt our marriage was in any trouble, and never in a million years would I ever have suspected my wife of being disloyal. She's always done everything she could to support me and to take care of our kids. Now, my eldest daughter recently had an ancestry test done, and the results of the ancestry test strongly suggested I was not her father. She confided this to me privately, showing me the results, and I could tell she was visibly upset by this. Of course, the first thing I did was reassure her that no matter what, she's my daughter, and I'll always love her unconditionally. But secondly, the 2 of us decided to get an official paternity test since the ancestry tests are not completely reliable. It comes back I am indeed not her biological father. This news really broke me. I'm ashamed to say I broke down in tears in front of my daughter. The combination of finding out about my wife's infidelity and how upset I was making my daughter by how I was reacting. I really wish I had kept it in for her sake, but I didn't. Following this, I asked my other kids, except my youngest, to come and see me. I wanted to know the extent of my wife's infidelity. If it was a one-off, I could maybe work past it, especially given with how long ago it was. However, I didn't want to tell my youngest as she is still in school, a teenager, and I really didn't think it was appropriate to tell her yet. We tell the other 3 what has happened. I reassure them that I love them unconditionally and that I'll always be their dad, but that I need to know how long this has been going on. I can't begin to explain how touching their reaction was. They didn't care I wasn't their biological father. They were just upset at how heartbroken I was. I feel like the only thing that has kept me going these last couple of weeks is their unwavering support. So we have paternity tests for each of the 3 done. Not only are none of them my biological kids, but 4 of my kids have 3 different fathers, which somehow made it worse. It's like she wasn't just having an ongoing affair, she was having multiple. I can't explain how this makes it worse, but it just does. So I confront my wife with this, expecting her to confess and beg for forgiveness. She doesn't confess. She doesn't even take it seriously. She says the tests must be flawed. All 4? How am I supposed to take that seriously? I keep bringing it up and she keeps brushing it off, getting progressively more annoyed at me. When I bring it up, she'll try and guilt trip me. We've been together since high school. Do you seriously not trust me? Etc. But how am I supposed to trust her in the face of such overwhelming evidence? Now that I've rambled and explained what has happened, I guess let me ask a few direct questions for advice. How can I reassure my kids this doesn't change anything between us? I feel like the way I have reacted, total breakdowns, have made them second guess this, despite however many times I reassure them. How do I handle my youngest daughter? I feel like our marriage is beyond saving, and I'll need to tell my daughter something. I don't want her to know the truth until she's older, but I also don't want my wife lying and making me out to be the bad guy. Is there any way at all, anything I can do to save my marriage? I've been with my wife my entire life. It's almost impossible to see a life without her. I know that the answer should be a clear leave her, but we have 5 kids together. If there's anything that can be done to save our marriage, I want to consider it seriously. Well, hey, at least OP didn't ask for a paternity test back when his wife was pregnant, because according to Reddit, nobody ever has the right to ask for that. Yeah, remember the story where the guy had been told by multiple specialists he was infertile, and then his wife got pregnant, so he wanted a paternity test and Reddit just went crazy on him? Oh, I remember that one, Reddit boy, but I wish I didn't. Am I the jerk for calling out my dog sitter for doubling her charge 4 days before our flight? My husband, 33 male, and I, 35 female, have 2 small dogs, Pip, who's 5, and Skip, who's 17. We both work and live below our means, and this allowed us to purchase a home and have some savings. We enjoy travel with the strategic use of miles, promos, and reciprocal travel friendships. I budget carefully and pre-plan everything so we have enough to live, enough to save, and enough to enjoy our lives. Aside from our regular jobs, we also watch dogs on the side. We usually do so below market rate because we understand how inflated dog sitting fees have become. We usually pet sit for around $30 per dog per day. Sometimes we even dog sit for free if they're a friend or a family member, or if it's financially tight for some of our regular clients. We love animals and we're very understanding of other people's means. This has built us a small network of people we could rely on to watch our pets until recently. A couple of our friends moved away and some have become too busy. We started using a friend of my sister-in-law named Betty. She has been charging us $30 a day for Pip and $35 a day for Skip. She stays at our house and sat for us with no issues at that rate 2 times prior. In September, I informed her that we were taking a longer trip to visit my husband's aunt for Thanksgiving as she has cancer. We told her it would just be Skip. After doing the math, it made sense to pay the fees and fly with Pip. She agreed. A few weeks before our trip, the sitter says she cannot watch Skip on Thanksgiving and Black Friday because our mom booked a cabin for them that didn't allow pets. So we scrambled to find someone to take Pip for those days. Although he does not have major medical issues and takes no meds, he is deaf, blind, has doggy dementia, and is incontinent. The incontinent part usually puts people off taking him, so we were very anxious. But after some time, we found a sitter willing to take him those days, and Betty agreed to pick him up for the remainder of the days. Then, 4 days before we leave for our trip, Betty says she will keep her rate at $65 per day because she will be traveling from the cabin, then picking up Skip. I called her out on this because we only needed to get an additional sitter because of the changes in her plans. For reference, the other dog sitter was going to charge us $50 a day. I would have booked her for the whole thing, but Betty said she would charge us just an additional day for the pickup. My husband and I both assumed it would still be at our regular rate because she had not informed us otherwise over the 3 months we had planned this. I told her it was not cool that she's doubling our rate right before we're about to fly. I didn't tell her I wasn't going to pay the extra rate. I asked for a compromise and for her to be more upfront of any extra charges in the future. Betty then grew very uncomfortable with our interaction and basically backed out of watching him entirely. Thankfully, the second sitter was free to watch him the days that she bailed on. Am I the jerk? Also, while I appreciate your concerns about Skip's impending demise, he's actually still doing okay. He has no tumors, no cancer, etc. Sometimes we take him on small walks where he drools at all the scents. He has a very healthy appetite and loves his favorite foods. He loves to snuggle when we watch TV and always loves to be in his special spot in the middle of the bed at night. You're the jerk. I feel like the core of this is a misunderstanding. She was paid $65 a day to dog sit. I understand it was split between 2 dogs, but that doesn't mean that one dog only is worth about half the price, especially when that dog is deaf, blind, incontinent, and demented. But you are the jerk for thinking that $35 is a reasonable daily rate to pay for that and pushing back. That's a massive burden and a ton of work, and I think you should be happy to throw any money at it you need to. Not the jerk, because she committed to watch him and did not tell you that her fee had almost doubled. Then she ditched you for part of the trip and you had to find an alternative so late in the game. Lesson learned though, I would not trust her again. Am I the jerk for telling my half-sister that I will never be walked down the aisle by our mom's affair partner? I, 27 female, have a half-sister who's 25. We share the same mom, but she cheated on my dad while they were married, and my half-sister is the result of that. Mom ended up marrying her dad after the affair was revealed and DNA was established. Apparently, he wouldn't have married Mom if my half-sister hadn't been his. My parents shared custody of me until I was just about to turn 8, literally 2 weeks before my birthday, and then my dad passed in an accident. I was at school and it was his parenting time with me, so I saw him that day. It really destroyed me. I ended up living with my mom, obviously. I always knew about the tension between my parents and my dad and my mom's husband. I always knew about the affair because my aunt, mom's sister, was very open about it, and she would use every opportunity to call my mom and her husband out. My mom is still married to my half-sister's dad. He tried to be a dad to me. I do think he loves me. He claims me as his other daughter, all that stuff. But I still see him as not my dad, and as the person who hooked up with my mom and got her pregnant while she was married to my dad. He does not get the fatherly role in my life now. Whenever I see him and my mom, I'm civil, but we are not close. My relationship with my half-sister isn't that close either, but I know none of this is her fault, so I try to have a sibling relationship with her. After I got engaged, she told me she couldn't wait to see our dad walk me down the aisle. That's when I told her it would never happen. And when she said it should, because he has been there longer than my dad ever was, I told her it didn't matter to me, because I would never be walked down the aisle by my mom's affair partner. She told me that was 26 years ago, and I said, yeah, it was, and I don't remember it happening. But he does not get rewarded, and I'm not disrespecting my dad's memory like that. She told me I shouldn't be acting like this, and what do I think of her when I hate her parents, and especially her dad, that much? She told me I should appreciate him more for trying to be a good dad to me, and I always rejected him and treated him like crap. Am I the jerk? I know this is about your conversation with your sister, but have you informed your mother or your sister's father? I don't see stepdad anywhere, so I'm taking it that you don't call him that either. That he will not be walking you down the aisle? Will they be invited to the wedding? Not the jerk. Choose who you want to walk you down the aisle. Put a picture up of your biological father for remembrance if you like. OP. They won't be invited, and I have not told them. But I really have nothing to do with them now, so I expect they'll figure it out. They need to know if they aren't invited. They might assume that they are, and that they don't need to receive an official invitation. Maybe in their eyes, as your parents, they are absolutely coming. I know you don't see him as a parent, but in their minds, they probably think that. Send them a registered letter if you don't want to tell them face-to-face, or an email with a red receipt. People that have zero relationship with the bride, even if it's the mother and stepfather, do not need any heads up. They don't deserve the courtesy. Well, it's not necessarily out of courtesy. It's more so they don't show up and risk causing a scene. Maybe OP should consider bouncers. Not the jerk for your decision about the wedding. You could have been a little less rude to your sister though. None of this is her fault either. Your resentment for your stepfather seems unhealthy, so you might want to reflect on that. Not as in add him to your wedding party, but as in creating the best mental health for yourself as you can. Best of luck to you. I hope your wedding is amazing and you can find a way to honor your dad during the ceremony. Goodness, I hope your sister cuts you off after this. Leave that family to be happy in peace. You have zero concept of what happened between your parents when you were a baby. Your information is coming from the completely biased source of mom's sister. And even if your dad was the saint you seem to think he was, you're throwing away a family that loves you because your mom made a mistake 25 years ago. That family deserves better than you. Grow up. Am I the jerk for selling my late grandparents' ranch, even though they asked me not to? Long story short, my grandparents used to live on this ranch for almost 60 years, and both of them passed away on this property. My mother was raised there, and so were my siblings and I, so there's quite a lot of sentimental value to the house. There's also a lot of monetary value to the property. The problem is the upkeep, especially as a single 28-year-old with a moderate paid job, which is what I told my grandfather years ago when he told me he wanted the house to be my inheritance to raise my own family like he did his. It became a running thing with him telling me I needed to get comfortable with the house for when it's mine, me saying I'd just sell it, and him arguing with me about that. He sadly passed early last year, quite suddenly and true to his word, left me the house among other assets. I decided I'd try to make the old man happy and accepted the responsibility. For the past year, I've been trying to make everything work with fluctuating success, but ultimately the house is somewhat of a sinkhole. On top of that, I've been headhunted for a job across the country with potential to move overseas within the next year. After long internal deliberations, I decided to just sell the house. When I told my sister, she lost it. She says I'm disrespecting the old man's wishes by selling it to a stranger and should rather let her and her husband have it. I told her she could have it immediately as long as she could pay the market value for the house. She thinks it's unfair to ask for money for a house I got for free and offer to stay in it, and in return, she'll upkeep it herself. I was planning on using the money from the sale for a place when I move, though, so that also wouldn't work out. There's a lot of tension now, and she's even trying to rally family members against me. I get the old man wouldn't be happy with this if he were alive, but frankly and lovingly, he isn't, and I shouldn't burden myself, right? Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. I'm not the biggest fan of venerating the wishes of the dead when it's counter to your own well-being. I think it's nice that you tried, but your grandpa was under no illusions about your feelings on keeping the ranch and the property. Definitely check for hidden treasure, cursed gold, or buried bodies before you sell. Edit to say that with the added context from OP, I think selling it to sister for fair market value is crappy. Sure, she should pay something, at least to recoup your cost for maintaining it, assuming that also didn't come from your disproportionate inheritance, but you're drifting into jerk territory for me. You're the jerk. You get a free house that grandpa wanted to stay in the family and decide your sister should pay market value? I don't see how you could be anything other than the jerk. Not saying she should get it for free, but market value for a free house? If you do this, expect it to forever impact on how the rest of the family sees you for the rest of your life. I am 100% venting here and taking it out on you, but I get perpetually angry at how it seems like the only way people in my age range can afford a house is if they get a massive inheritance. So while you are basically set for life, not having to pay a full mortgage ever again after the money you just accumulated out of nowhere, I'll be scraping by just to try and make a down payment on a house. You better not be one of those people in 5 to 10 years trying to give people advice on what made you successful without mentioning that you got a house for free and then pocketed all the money from selling it in order to buy your next house. The fact that you are so greedy and would only give it to your sister for market rate when she probably should have had 50% of that inheritance to begin with is incredibly crappy. You're the jerk. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his sister? Please let us know. Seriously, dude. Give the house to your sister and let her and her family appreciate it. My daughter wants me to pay for her expensive college tuition for a career that doesn't even pay anything. I'm 49, male, and I have 2 kids, Jake, who's 23, and Nikki, who's 17. Their mother and I are divorced. I have full custody, and she sends no support. Both of my kids are good kids and good students with good grades. Jake got into his dream school, but didn't get any scholarships. His undergrad school is one of the best schools in our part of the country, and it's expensive. I didn't want him to take out loans and have to carry debt, so I'm paying for his tuition and living expenses. The total cost is roughly $50,000 a year. He's following in our family tradition and is pursuing a career in dentistry. I'm not a dentist, but we have about a dozen dentists and oral surgeons in our family. I will also be paying for his dentistry degree. While I know it will be costly, I view this as a good investment, as he'll have a starting salary of about $120,000 as a dentist in our area. If he decides to become an oral surgeon, his starting salary will almost double that figure. Nikki is a senior in high school. Like her brother, she's a good student and will have a good chance of getting into her dream school, but she has a low chance of getting any scholarships. Her dream school is also a very good one, located in the middle of a very expensive city. Tuition and living expenses will be roughly $75,000 a year. The problem is that she's dreamt of being a teacher since she was little, and she's made it clear that she will be an education major because she wants to be a middle school teacher. The other problem is that the salary for middle school teachers in our area is $48,000 to $60,000 a year. I fully realize that she can move and work elsewhere, but I can't imagine there are many middle school teachers in the US making 6 figures. I don't view paying $300,000 plus for a career that tops out at $60,000 a year as a wise investment. I told my daughter that the state school that's 2 hours away has a good education program, and her in-state tuition and living expenses will only be about $20,000 a year. I view paying $80,000 for a teaching degree as a much better investment. I've tried discussing the matter with Nikki, but she gets distraught every time I've brought it up. She cries and accuses me of favoring Jake and being a jerk, which is not true. I told her if she picks a major with a $100,000 starting salary, I'll gladly pay for her to go to her dream school, but there's no way I'm paying $300,000 for her to be a teacher. Now she's got family members involved. Some are staying out of it, some agree with me, and some are telling me not to play favorites. I feel terrible, so I'm beginning to doubt myself. Am I wrong? Edit to answer a few recurring questions. I thought it made it clear, but apparently I didn't. I'm not limiting Nikki's education to $20,000 a year. I told her that's the max I'm willing to pay for her education degree. I'm more than happy to pay $75,000 a year if she picks another degree that will have a better return. For a while, she thought about being a doctor and fell in love with England. We have family there. So I even offered to pay for her to go to Oxford, which will be double the cost of her brother's tuition. But she's adamant about being a middle school teacher, and I'm unwilling to spend $300,000 that I worked hard for on an education degree. You're the jerk. This whole post reeks of favoritism. I hope the dentist switches to an art major halfway through. The fact that OP made this post and hasn't considered himself a jerk is completely alien to me. I wouldn't like him to be my dad, that's for sure. You're the jerk. To be fair, you should at least pay what you're paying for your son's education and let her take out student loans for the rest. You're the jerk. You are clearly favoriting your son here. He's following the family traditions, and you're happy to take on a load of debt for him, but you won't do the same for your daughter because her career choice is a problem. You only take on debt for your kid if they do the careers you want them to do. Go back to your daughter before you lose her. He doesn't say he's taking on debt at all. He's considering return on investment, as everyone who's going to college should. The return on investment should be your kid's happiness. You should feel really bad. You're paying fully for the kid who will make enough to easily pay off some loans with a great profession, and not for your daughter who wants to be a teacher, which is incredibly noble and needed in this country, to burden her with loans that she will take forever to repay because she will make crap. Because we treat teachers like crap. And guess what? Apparently so do you. You're the jerk. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk or not? Please let us know. Never ask a bunch of people on Reddit for financial advice, unless you're in the right subreddit. There are a few subs with people who are actually financially literate. Am I the jerk for letting my mother have a copy of the key to our new house, despite my wife's objection? I, 34 male, recently bought a one-story house. Note that it was purchased solely by me. My wife did not help save for it. I started saving for it before I even met her, and it's in my name. When my parents threw us a party for this happy occasion, Mom asked for a copy of the key in case of an emergency. I let her have it, which made my wife upset. She didn't say anything at the time, but she waited till we were alone, and she started arguing with me, saying that I shouldn't have let my mother have a copy of the key. I said why, since my mother is known to respect our privacy and is a very trusted member of the family. She said that she does not feel comfortable with the idea of someone else who's not a resident having a copy of the key. She also brought up how my mother didn't pay a penny towards the house, so this should disqualify her from getting the key. I said it wasn't a big deal, but she kept persisting, saying that I needed to take the key back. Quite frankly, this had me fuming. I pointed out that I'm the one who bought the house, and it's my decision to decide who gets to have a copy of the key. End of story. She screamed at me, saying that technically she did contribute towards the house savings, back when she used to pay for our rent and daily expenses while I saved money. I told her that she was acting as if I put my mom's name on the title, which is ridiculous, but she said that I have no respect for her opinions and keep undermining her input. We've been going back and forth on it since then. She's now letting me know that if I don't take the key back, then she'll do it herself. I think she's being irrational and unreasonable, acting like that over a copy of the house key. This decision I made could save us one day in case of an emergency, but she kept downplaying it. ETA, I think it's crucial to mention that there's no conflict between my mother and my wife. They're on near perfect terms, all right? I thought that I've already established that above. You're the jerk. And that is why you can't trust no one when it comes to money. You played your wife. You probably told her that you would save for a shared home, and that's why she should support you and pay your share of the rent. Now, she didn't contribute a penny to your house. Your house. She gets no say, but your mom does. You're the jerk. I'm a bit confused as to how OP can admit that the wife paid rent while he put his savings towards a house, and then go back and say the wife didn't contribute. There's a lot of unanswered questions here. Does he really not understand that if she wasn't paying the entirety of the rent, then he would not have been able to save as much? How long was she paying rent, and how much did she have in savings before she started doing that? What was the actual agreement there? And on that note, why is the wife not making a bigger deal out of not having her name on the house? Did she agree to it for some reason that benefits her? Is this actually a bigger deal to her than OP is letting on, and that's why she's so resistant to the idea of his mom getting a key? Does he pull the "it's my house" thing often? It feels like OP left out a huge chunk of the story here. The wife's name is not on the house? Oh, that's a deal breaker. It would be for me as well, assuming the house was bought while they were married, and there isn't a very unique, very compelling reason for the wife to not want her name on the house. OP hasn't offered any explanation aside from what's in the original post, so I can only conclude he's a controlling jerk who took advantage of his wife to buy a house in his name alone and is now holding that over her. A real prize, truly. You're the jerk. Your attitude of "I paid for it" isn't on. You're married. It's our home, not my home now. In any case, your wife is right. She absolutely has financially contributed to the property. She paid the rent, which allowed you to save. Pretty disgusting of you to dismiss this. Your mother having a key to your home is a big deal, and something you and your wife both need to be comfortable with. If you aren't mature enough to make joint decisions with your wife, you shouldn't be married. I think your wife is right. You don't seem to respect her at all. Huge red flag that you only put the house in your name. You've basically used your wife to enable you to do what you want. Not the jerk. Once again, what we have here is Reddit hypocrisy at its finest. I've seen several stories on here where the wife is the one who owns the house and gets into a fight with her husband about things similar to this. Of course, when that's the case, you all side with her and tell her that it's her house and she should kick him out. I see lots of you saying you hope his wife divorces him and takes him to the cleaners. The sad thing is, OP's wife could actually divorce him for this and get half the house since they were married when he bought it, which would cause him to have to sell it and split the money with her during the divorce proceedings, all because OP wants his mom to have a key in case of emergencies. If this doesn't show you what's wrong with our society, I don't know what will. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his wife? Please let us know.
If Reddit boy tried to give his mom a key to our house, I'd tell him it's probably a good idea. You never know when an emergency is going to happen.
Do this next. Tap here on your screen to come see our new podcast playlist, where you'll find thousands of hours of the best stories you've ever heard.
Or tap the one on the right. That episode is specifically just for you, based on other videos you've enjoyed the most.